Well, I'm ready to share the Bible again with you in Genesis chapter 3. It says, Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Let's talk about the serpent a minute. Let's talk about it being more subtle than any beast of the field. When I looked up that word, it meant hard to detect or to understand, sly, treacherous, clever, crafty, cunning, tricky, wily, designing, deceptive. He was more subtle. And subtle is something that you don't get. You don't get it. You don't get where he's coming from. And also, he was more subtle than any beast of the fields which the Lord God hath made. And he said unto the woman, he talked to her. She talked to him. Do you think any of the other animals talked? I don't know. It doesn't say. But this animal did. This beast did. And he asked her a question. He said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Now they weren't just passing time talking to each other. He had an agenda. Agenda means something planned, something he was going to do. So the serpent had an agenda by talking to Eve. And she's not named Eve yet. Not until the end of this chapter is she named Eve, I believe, and almost to the end of the chapter. So, but it was the woman. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die. So, this is, Adam has told her this, because God told Adam that. Let's go back where he told him. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden where he put the man whom he had formed. And let's see where he told him. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. This is in chapter 2. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. That's verse 16 and 17 in chapter 2. And then in chapter 3, the woman is telling the serpent what she knows. And what she knows, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. So, Adam probably didn't say, he might have said, Don't touch it, because he was afraid for her. He was afraid for her. That's what she believed, that she shouldn't touch it, she shouldn't eat of it. And God had told him not to eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. So she even believed she shouldn't touch it. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. Now, did Adam know what it was to die? God believed he did. God gave him that understanding. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Had anything died? I don't know. I know that some insects only live for a day. So maybe he saw some dead insect. Maybe he was aware of death, knew what death was. I don't know. But maybe the woman didn't know what death was either. But she knew that God had said you would die if you eat of it. So it sounded like she shouldn't do it. And really, when you get right down to it, everybody, do we really know what it means to die? We've seen others die, but we've never felt it ourselves. So That's some kind of a point right there, that we don't know what it means to die. It said, "Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Let's see what he said now. The serpent, we know that the devil is in him. God didn't create the serpent to be evil. I don't believe that. He didn't create him to be evil. But when the enemy comes, when Satan comes and fills anything up, it's going to be not good anymore, because he's not good. He's all evil. And so when the serpent lied to the woman by saying, "Ye shall not surely die," he lied to her. So in one respect, we can say that's the first lie in the Bible. First lie in the Bible. Are there lies in the Bible? Yes. Lots of people in the Bible don't tell the truth. But God puts it in His holy word because He wants us to know the truth, even about lying. And here it is. The first lie says, "Ye shall not surely die." And God, He said, "For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Now, did He lie right there? When they ate, their eyes were opened. They did know good and evil. But were they as gods? Little G-O-D-S. What was the devil talking about there? What was the serpent talking about there, to be as gods? Don't know. They didn't know. What was it like to be a god? I don't know. I see the real God. I know what He is, but to be some underneath God, I don't know. So it wasn't that she believed all of what He said so much as this, verse 6. "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes," she'd already been noticing that, "and a tree to be desired to make one wise." Now, he had opened her eyes to this, that this tree was going to help her to be wise. Have you ever wanted to be wise? Have you ever wanted to be able to think just the right thing at just the right time? Woo! This woman, she was wishing for something that she didn't have. And sometimes we do. We wish for something we don't have. And instead of going to the Lord and saying, "Lord, I'm not very wise. Would you help me?" she decided she'd eat this fruit. Eat this fruit. You know, lots of times there's things that we know we should take to God, but we take it in our own hands to do something about it, instead of taking it to God and letting Him answer us about it. And that's what she did. She didn't take it to God. She didn't take it to her husband. She didn't go say, "Listen to what he's saying. Is this right?" Well, she wasn't wise, for sure. And it was a tree to be desired to make one wise. She listened to that part of it. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Now, it says her husband was with her. Was he listening to what the serpent said too? Don't know. Was he on one side of the tree and she was on the other listening to the serpent? Don't know. But when she ate it, then she gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Now, I wonder when God... Well, let's read this next verse so you can You can hear it. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. So when God came walking in the cool of the day, and it sounded like he came to talk and be with them. When he came walking in the cool of the day, was he wearing clothes? I don't know. Seemed like God always wore clothes. But it didn't seem strange for Adam and Eve not to be wearing any to them, and him wearing them. So I don't know. I don't know how that was. There's lots of things about this we don't know. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Could they see him, or was it just his voice? We don't know. We don't know if he was visible or just his voice came. Because it says, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. They had already sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. It's not hard to make an apron. You just get a vine, and you use some of the, when you've got a cabbage palm out there, it has these long things that look like thread. Sew those big old fig leaves around that vine. Big old fig leaves around that vine. I can see you putting it around here and putting it around there, and Adam putting it around there. I don't guess he did up there because it seems like they don't think anything about that. But anyhow, they were covering themselves up with the aprons. And when God came in the cool of the day, they were hiding themselves. And the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. How pitiful that sounded, didn't it? Adam that named all the animals, that was the first man to walk with God like that. I hid myself because I was naked. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? God knows everything. He knew he'd already done it. But he wanted to talk about it to Adam. He wanted to talk about it. So he brought it up and asked him. And the man said, The woman who thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. What subtlety is behind that is I would have never done that. Except she did it. She gave it to me. I would have never done it if she hadn't given it to me. Probably wouldn't have. She did. And the Lord God said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? Ooh. That was pretty strong, wasn't it? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. He tricked me. He tricked me into eating it, saying I'd be wise. She knew she wasn't very wise right then. She knew. She'd messed up. I know she did. She knew she had messed up and gave it to her husband. She knew she'd really messed up. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So now, we don't hear anything of Satan. Satan is not mentioned. It's just the serpent. It's just the woman. It's just Adam. subtle, hard to detect or to understand. It was hard to detect Satan there, that he was. And because God didn't make the serpent wicked. I don't believe the serpent was wicked on his own. But he was able to talk, and the devil could use him, and did use him. And so he was cursed. Seems that he did not slither around on his belly before this. He did not. He was, I think, up on maybe hind legs, or at least on four legs, maybe two. He was not like they are now. But now they go on their belly, and dust they eat all the days of their life. And he said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman. Y'all don't mind that sound. That is my air conditioner. It's getting loud. And it gets loud and then it stops being loud. But I wasn't expecting it to get loud while I'm teaching. Granny sharing with you the Bible. But let's just finish this one verse and then we'll stop right there. It says, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So the seed of the woman is what the devil, the serpent, was cursed with, it bruising his head. The seed of the woman was going to bruise his head, and the seed of the serpent was going to bruise his heel. Bruise the heel of the seed of the woman. So right there is the prophecy from in the very beginning of the Bible about Jesus coming, and about the old devil having his head bruised. Means you bruise something's head sufficiently, it ain't going to get up from that. But you can get your heel bruised and still get up. And that's what happened. Jesus, they nailed him to the tree. He died on the cross for us, but he rose again. But he is bruising the head of Satan, so he will never rise again. Good? It's good. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and I will come back probably on that verse when I come back, because it's got a lot in it. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing. Bye-bye.